welcome everyone to Rearview TV channel. I have a new video that we will be talking about today. We will be taking a step back into history, speaking about colonialism. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please make sure you subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Anyway, let's get into this. Now we're going to go a little bit more deeper into these major monuments, statues and symbolic sites that were damaged, destroyed, looted or removed by these Gentiles from Africa. Firstly, Oba's Palace and Benin Bronzes, Benin City, Edo Kingdom of Benin, Nigeria. So the Palace of the Oba, Benin City, thousands of bronzes, brass plaques, ivory tusks, heads and royal regalias tied to the Edo monarchy, which was taken by British punitive expedition Sir Harry Rawson in 1897. The palace was burned and many pieces were looted and shipped to Europe and North America. The bronzes and palace objects are central to Benin royal ritual, history and identity. Their removal was both physical plunder and a symbolic attack on the monarchy. British Museum background on the Benin bronzes, historical reporting on the 1897 expedition and ongoing restitution debates. Secondly, Kumasi, the Asante Royal Palace in modern Ghana, ceremonial objects held at the Asante Court in Kumasi. The British forces occupying and burning Kumasi during Anglo-Asante. This was caused by the British forces occupying and burning Kumasi during Anglo-Asante campaigns, notably 1874. A major plunder and dispersal of objects followed. These were Asante's regalia and court objects embodied political authority. The golden stools, the ultimate symbol. The sacking of Kumasi damaged Asante's political and cultural life and saw treasures moved abroad. Recent years have seen loans and partial returns. Thirdly, Magdala treasures, Amber Mariam, Magdala, Ethiopia. So imperial and ecclesiastical objects, tablets, sacred altar tablets, crosses, liturgical silver, royal regalia from Emperor Tewodros II's fortress at Magdala. This was by British expeditionary forces after the 1868 battle siege of Magdala. Objects were taken to Britain and later dispersed among museums, including the British Museum and V&A. These tablets and liturgical objects are sacred to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Their removal represented direct seizure of religious and imperial symbols. Reparation remains contested. Next, Axum, northern Ethiopia. Their ancient Axumite stele, obelisk, monumental stone, stele marking tombs and royal power. The large obelisks of one of Axum's was cut into sections and removed to Rome by Italian occupying forces in 1937 under Mussolini. Parts were returned and re-erected in Ethiopia in 2005. These steles are social central markers of Axumite civilization and Ethiopian national heritage. Their seizure was an explicit act of wartime cultural expropriation. Great Zimbabwe stone birds and monuments, we spoke about this before. It was a monumental dry stone architecture from the medieval period. These were removed across colonial and early 20th century excavations. Colonizers and early archaeologists often denied African authorship, even while removing sculptures and architectural fabric. Some birds and stones were taken abroad. Many have been returned in recent decades. These were very symbolic because Great Zimbabwe is a foundational nation Great Zimbabwe is a foundational national symbol for Zimbabwean identity. Removal and misattribution were part of colonial narratives undermining African achievement. Ife and Igbo Uku sculptural traditions. Ife naturalistic copper alloy heads and terracottas, Igbo Uku bronzes, ritual vessels and beads, early medieval pre-colonial masterpieces. These were, many pieces were removed during colonial era excavations or by collectors in the early 20th century and entered European and American museums and private collections. These works challenged racist assumptions about African technical skill and were central to local religious and kingship practices. Their removal deprived local communities of tangible links to their past. Obelisks, royal objects, and the Rova royal compounds, royal palaces and regalia of the Marina monarchy, the Rova of Antananarivo and other royal compounds, the French colonial conquest in the 1894-95 expedition and subsequent colonization led to seizure of royal authority and many royal properties. The Rova complex suffered later destruction, including the 1995 fire, which is often discussed in national debates over heritage. This was symbolic. The Rova and its objects symbolize Malagasy, sovereignty, and lineage. Colonial conquest disrupted royal institutions and removed objects to French collections. Kondo Kingdom objects and the Great House of Idols in Mbanza, Congo, Sao Salvador, modern Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo border region, the Nikisi power figures, ritual objects, and the Great House of Idols associated with the pre-colonial Kingdom of Congo. From first Portuguese contact, late 15th century, through later colonial periods, European intervention and allied Congo rulers at times led to the suppression or destruction of indigenous religious sites and seizure of objects. The destruction of ritual houses and power figures attacked spiritual authority and local worldviews. The Congo story also illustrates how early European contact reshaped political religious institutions. Shark Island concentration camps and destroyed Herero Nama cultural landscapes. In Namibia, German, they say, Southwest Africa. Sites of mass murder, forced labor camps, and community destruction, Shark Island, Waterberg, and surrounding Herero Nama territories. Colonial violence often included destruction of settlements, burial grounds, and cultural landscapes. Obviously, by German colonial forces between 1904 to 1908 carried out slaughter, concentration camps, and policies that destroyed livelihoods, settlements, and cultural continuity. These sites are not just military sites, but places of communal memory, graves, and cultural loss. The violence erased entire social structures and material culture in affected communities. Contemporary forensic and restitution work emphasizes the need to protect and commemorate these sites. Widespread removal, destruction of royal regalia, sacred objects, and totems across multiple regions. Umbrellas, symbol of kingship in West Africa, royal stools, tabots, royal swords, altars, shrine ensembles, and other objects from dozens of villages, chiefdoms, and kingdoms across West, Central, and East Africa. Taken widely during punitive expeditions, colonial occupations, missionary confiscations, and early archaeological collecting between the 18th to the 20th centuries. Colonial actors often targeted ritual and political objects deliberately because removing them undercut local authority. The transfers scattered objects across Europe, North America, and emptied many communities of their ceremonial material. A few more facts to go into regarding Africa's history. Under Australian colonial mandate rule, wages, labour, exploitation, colonial neglect, In 1929, there was the Rabaul strike by about 3,000 PNG workers, protesting extremely low wages under Australian colonial enterprises. This shows that indigenous people were being employed on plantations, labour contracts under colonial conditions that were very unfavourable, with low pay and few protections. Not exactly atrocity in a sense of mass killing, but severe exploitation. Rabaul is a land of black people, by the way. Punitive expeditions, massacres. One event is the Nakani massacre in 1926. This was a punitive expedition organised by Australian colonial authorities in response to the killing of some Australians. It resulted in large-scale violence by colonial forces into indigenous areas. This is an example of colonial violence being used to enforce authority, often with very little regard for indigenous life. Land appropriation, scant services. The Mandate administration often neglected development, education, health, and basic infrastructure for indigenous people. Land rights were often overridden by colonial authorities or plantation interests. While not always documented as atrocities, these amounted to systemic injustices. The 1929 strike also points at inequity in wage and labour policy. Japanese occupation in World War II. This is a period with the most severe atrocities, especially involving forced labour, massacre, executions, rape, internment, and death from neglect. Indigenous people suffered in several ways, also non-Indigenous Asians, Pacific Islanders, and prisoners from other countries were victims. Here are some key documented events. On the plantation massacre, we'll begin with. After the Japanese invaded, many Australian troops and others tried to escape. At the plantation, around 160 Australian soldiers were captured and then killed, marched into the jungle near or to the plantation in small groups and then shot, bayoneted or burnt alive. 6 survived to testify. Indigenous people sometimes help survivors, while these soldiers versus Indigenous people distinction is important. Indigenous people were also affected. For example, village communities near where these events happened suffered displacement, reprisals, and sometimes violence. Forced labor, carrier work. The Japanese used large numbers of non-Japanese people, so Chinese, Indians, Indonesians, also indigenous PNGers, and people from other parts of New Guinea as forced labourers for building airfields, for transport, carriers, supply lines, etc. Many died due to mistreatment, poor food, disease, internment, and civilian suffering. Various civilians, including indigenous people. Every time I say indigenous people, this is referring to the locals of the land, the black people. Chinese, other Asians, missionaries, nuns were interned. The internment camps often had very poor conditions, limited food, sanitation, exposure to bombing, sometimes accidentally by Allied forces, disease. The photograph records show Chinese civilian deaths. For instance, of 653 Chinese interned by the Japanese around Rabaul, 259 were re-interned in a Chinese cemetery after death. In Rabaul, there were also women that were known as comfort women. This was in relation to sexual slavery. Indigenous women and girls were subjected to sexual violence. Comfort women is a phrase that they use for institutionalized sexual slavery by Japanese forces in many parts of Asia and the Pacific. In Rabaul, women were brought or coerced into service for the occupying military. Mass deaths from transport or sinking. The Montevideo Maru sinking on the 1st of July. The Montevideo Maru sinking on the 1st of July 1942 is perhaps the most tragic single event Over 800 Australian soldiers and more than 200 civilian internees from New Britain, New Ireland were drowned when the Japanese ship carrying them to internment or detention was sunk by an American submarine. Although the sinking was not intentional on the part of the Japanese from their perspective, it was part of the brutal war, since many had no choice to escape or know what was happening. Many of these prisoners of war, civil, interning people were non-combatants or had already been captured. Some of them were also the local black people of Rabaul. Reprisals, executions, punishment of resistance. Indigenous leaders, village chiefs who refused Japanese orders or resisted in some way were punished, sometimes killed. For example, Japanese used pre-war village chiefs and traditional authority structures to impose order. Those who resisted sometimes faced violence. Death of outsiders who had sought refuge. Some indigenous people from other areas, stranded labourers, etc., were caught up and forced to fend for themselves or work for Japanese. Some died by starvation, disease, and exposure. Also, the people of Rabaul were under labour coercion. They were being forced to work on plantations, building infrastructure for Japanese war effort, often under duress and with minimal or no compensation. Reprisals and violence when indigenous or local people were taught to resist or refuse, or simply by being in the way of military occupying forces. They suffered violence, execution, or displacement. Local people were sometimes interned, forced into camps, subject to bombing, disease, and starvation. Sexual violence, the forced comfort women, systems affected local women as well. Collateral damage, when Rabaul was bombed by Allied forces to weaken Japanese stronghold, indigenous villages and civilians suffered. These included being caught in crossfires, having homes destroyed, being displaced. I also managed to get some oral history sources, local stories and testimonies from indigenous people that I managed to find online in some archives from around Rabaul and the Gazelle Peninsula that shed more light on what happened during this period. They offer further detail about the suffering, resistance, coping, and the lived realities, things that are often missing from official archives. Let's begin. So, to start with, the Tolai text, Rakunai collection is especially valuable. There's stories and memories in Kawana Tolai language collected from local people in the Rakunai area, many parts still with wartime experiences. So they go into forced labour and brutal working conditions, where many stories recount that Japanese soldiers forced Tolai villagers to build roads, airstrips, airfields, tunnels, etc. Often labourers were given very little food, scant rest, hardly any rest, punished harshly with cane whippings, beatings, and sometimes worked until bleeding. The punishments, arbitrary violence, executions. That also tells of people being tied up, tortured, left hanging, or limbs cut. One text, to Emil, atrocity of the Japanese, describes, if they see that there is a punishment required, when they call number 10, meaning probably the soldiers or the people that are causing all this impact onto the local people, when they call number 10, it means that they will cut the throat and kill a victim, meaning one of the local people, tied up after tortured, cutting off limbs, and buried in shallow pits. Food shortages, theft, destruction of gardens. Gardens were critical sources of food. Stories say that Japanese soldiers stole pigs, chickens, garden produce. So then the local people often had their garden produce destroyed or commanded. This led to hunger, fear of collecting food. Some stole back from the Japanese gardens as survival. It was their own food that they were stealing because the Japanese and whoever took it from the local people in the first place. But those who were caught were punished severely. Witness to planned mass killings near Massacre prevented. There was one powerful testimony says that the Japanese, as the Allies were closing in, had plans to commit mass killings of local villagers in many villages, including in the Baining area towards the coast. They ordered natives to dig large holes with graves in their villages in preparation. But the dropping of leaflets by Allied aircraft announcing the war's end or imminent surrender disrupted those plans. Villagers say if Allied forces had not stepped in, there would have been massacre. Also, religious leaders and Christians were persecuted. In some parts, catechists or Christian church workers were targeted by the Japanese for their faith or because the Japanese saw Christian organizations as linked to colonial Western belief systems or colonial administration. One speaker in Rakunai tells of a Catholic called Torot secretly continuing his church work despite warnings. He was eventually killed by the Japanese. Escape, hiding, and disruption of community life. Many people fled from towns to the bush. Some families hid in the mountains. Communities were broken up. People pulled away from their villages either because of forced labor, because villages were bombed, or because soldiers took the local people's homes. The impact wasn't only physical. Stories show that people carried grief over losses of family, of poverty, land, social structure. After the war, many of these stories became part of local remembrance in plays, songs, role plays to keep memory alive. For example, the Rakunai people perform role plays based on the story of Torot. Outside of the Tolai text, other sources confirm or add further detail. For example, I found something that says, Honoring Our Heroes article describes how local Chinese and indigenous populations were forced into labor. Some women and girls became comfort women. Many indigenous people from other parts ended up in forced labor. Some villages had luluais or totos, village chiefs, who worked under Japanese direction. You see, so they would use the local village chiefs to work under Japanese direction. And those refusing to comply were punished, sometimes killed. The PNG-AA library also notes that many foreign indigenous labourers from other parts of PNG were also lured into coming to Rabaul under false pretenses of reparation, then transported to places like Buna to work, encountering harsh conditions. There was also an interview with Nelson Tukil, a community-based band leader who, when Rabaul was bombed, had to bury instruments and flee. He was later taken as a carrier by the Japanese, and this personal story illustrates how ordinary life, music, culture, arts was disrupted, often forcibly. What is revealed that official records often miss putting these together. The oral histories provide several additional insights. The violence was not just through abstract military orders or bombing, it was personal, village by village. Many individuals witnessed torture or were themselves victims. The sense of fear in daily life, that you could be killed for small perceived offences, for resisting orders, for being in the wrong place. Because the Japanese often used local intermediaries, meaning the local village chiefs or other locals, or demanded obedience but enforced harsh punishments even for trivial infractions like stealing food, for example, the cruelty could appear random and severe. Gardens, pigs, chickens are often central to local subsistence. are often central to local subsistence, culture, and social life. Their destruction not only caused hunger but undermined social stability. The stories show people trying to hide food, steal food, sometimes even suffer reprisal from their own neighbors out of fear or conflict. The oral histories show how these experiences were not forgotten, but people made plays, songs, kept telling stories, and role plays of what happened. There is a communal effort to remember. This also shows how local cultural frameworks encode memory through song, language, and plays, not just through written records. In many stories, people resisted, some by fleeing, some by refusing to comply, some by hiding, other times by helping others. Women sometimes aided escapes. People had sometimes helped care for those whom the Japanese had left, even under threat. Disease, starvation, being overworked, exposure to bombing, many of these were not always counted in official records, which tend to emphasize military losses or prisoners of war, but feature heavily in local oral testimonies. People lost family members not in combat but to sickness, malnutrition, or simply because they had no shelter. So this video was about a bit of delving into Africa's history and some of the events that had happened there. Let me know your thoughts below on some of the information that I shared with you today. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If some of you are watching but are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. And I have shared a link to our website, our new temporary website, that I'd like you to go have a look at and try and sign up to and become a member of. And thank you for clicking to watch this podcast today. I have tried to not just make it like solely just me talking. I have tried to add in a few pictures or elements here and there. I hope you have a good rest of your day.